All right, guys. John here, All Miniatures Great and Small. Today's How to Play video, we're going to be talking about airplanes and how they can cause you great joy and great pain in your games of Flames of War. The rules for planes are pretty straightforward, but they do involve several of the different phases of the game. So, for example, you roll for your airplanes in the starting step to see if they show up. Then, in the movement step, you place your planes. Then, in the firing step, you conduct an attack with your planes. And then they're removed, and then maybe they come in next turn. So, let's talk about the starting step first. In the starting step, as part of the starting step, you roll for aircraft. So, the way you roll for aircraft is you roll a single die, and on a 4+, you get an airplane. Woohoo! So, let's talk about this first mechanic, because this is both frustrating and also a pretty interesting mechanic in the game. So in theory, you're only going to get your planes half of the time. You're rolling a 4 up to get planes, but depending on the player, like me, I go hot and cold. I'll have some games where they might come in once, and then they don't come in at all, and some games where they come in the majority of the time. So they're very hit or miss. When you're just rolling one die a turn, you could have very skewed dice roll results, and they not come in, or they could come in, like I said, every turn or almost every turn. So based on that, they are a very iffy proposition to include in your list. So they're not an auto-include by any means. That said, some planes synergize better with armies than others. For example, this IL-2 car here, 7 points in mid-war, gets you 2 planes with some pretty good stats. But 7 points are a lot. So, you roll, you get your planes in, and if you get them in, great, you can place them on the board. Or, if you fail, they stay on the side of the table, they don't come in until you can actually roll 4 up. Now, another thing, too, is you can place planes in reserves. If you're playing a mission with reserves, you could place your planes in reserves. However, that just skews your odds of ever seeing planes even further. If, let's say, you're playing delayed reserves, you don't even start rolling for your airplanes till turn 3. And then once they do come in reserves, you still need to roll a 4+ to get them on the table. So you don't roll those 4+ until they're actually out of reserves. So just something to keep in mind. If you take planes, I would never recommend reserves unless you really had to for some reason. All right. So with that said, let's say you got your airplanes in. How do they work? All right, so in the movement step, you get to place your planes. So there are a couple things to keep in mind, and that's the range of your weapons. So we're going to look here, and we're going to see that this plane has 2 weapons lined. It has 23mm guns, and it has bombs and rockets. Both of those have a 6-inch range. One of them has the artillery word, meaning it's going to drop a template, there's my template, onto something. The other is just a straight up gun line. So your 23mm guns, you're actually going to fire them as a direct fire weapon, like a tank shooting or an infantry unit shooting at something with direct fire. So you're going to get 2 shots, anti-tank 6, 5+ firepower. Now the thing to keep in mind is if you use your artillery stat line, you're attacking the top armor of your target. If you are using the weapon line, non-artillery, you are going to be going after the side or front of your target, depending on how you approach your target. So keep that in mind. You're going to have to decide what weapon you're going to use, and that might dictate where you place your airplanes. So let's use this example. I've got this German army heading towards me, heading towards one of their objectives, and they're going to win the game, but I've rolled and successfully got my airplanes in. So I have several targets I might consider. I could go after this infantry, I could go after those Hetzers, I could go after that artillery in the backfield, or I could go after those AA Whirlwinds. So I have some choices. Now, what you typically want to do is, before you place your planes, you want to make sure that you're going after the appropriate target, and you're going to set up to implement or use the weapon. In the case of the Sturmovik, both of our weapon systems have a 6-inch range, so I just need to be 6 inches away from my targets. So let's say I want to go after, we'll go after the Hetzers first. So I make sure that both my planes are within 6 inches of where I want to drop my bomb. And that could be any part of the plane. So let's say I want to drop my bomb right here. So I'm going to go for like something like that. Normally you don't place that till after you successfully ranged in, but that's kind of how it works. So if I'm dropping a bomb there, let's see how this works. I'm going to use my skill, which in this case, on a mid-war Sturmovik, is a 5+. Alright, so I need to range in, and if you watch the artillery video, you know how to range in. The first attempt out of 3. Let's see if I can get a 5-up, shall we? That's the opposite of what I needed. Ah, there we go. We got a, and try not to hit your models, or especially your opponent's models when you roll die. We got a 6, so that's better than our 5+. So we've ranged in on the second attempt. So normally those two Hetzers are hit on 4s. So now they're going to be hit on 5s because of the second attempt. So I'm going to roll for this Hetzer and roll for the other Hetzer. So I missed both my Hetzers, and then the planes can fly off. But let's say I hit that Hetzer. So this is gone. It's a miss, but I did hit that Hetzer. So now, because it's our artillery bombardment, I look at my anti-tank value of 5 against a top armor of 1. So that German player is going to roll a die and add 1 to it. 3 plus 1 is 4, which does not beat my anti-tank rating of 5, so I penetrated. It's a penetrating hit. And then we've got a 4-up firepower, so on a 4-up, that Hetzer's destroyed. So we got him with the 5. So that 2 planes came in, bombed, and killed 1 Hetzer, so pretty good. However, back up the train, you say, John. Let's say these Wirbelwinds are within range. So basically, if you have something that has dedicated AA, it can fire at the airplanes before the airplanes get to attack. So basically they get to fire their AA at the airplanes as they're coming in on their attack run and trying to shoot them down. So basically we look at the range of the AA, which in this case is 20 inches. So depending on where the planes are, we're going to check that range. As soon as the Sturmovik player, the Russian player, says, I'm going to try to drop a bomb here, then the German player says, all right, my AA are going to fire in defensive fire. You check the range. They have a 20-inch range. In this example, we'll say this time they're in range, so they're going to get to fire first. AA always uses the halted rate of fire, so each Wirbelwind is going to get 5 dice. That's pretty good. So let's get 5 dice, shall we? The airplanes are hit on a 4+. So that's going to be 10 dice hitting on 4s. Alright, let's get rid of these misses. Alright, pretty good, Wirbelwind. You hit 6 times. And you assign the hits just like you would in a normal, in a normal shooting phase. So 3 hits on that guy, 3 hits on that guy. Alright, so now the airplane needs to make a save. 2-up firepower. I mean, 2-up firepower. 2-up save. Sturmoviks are the most well-protected plane on the battlefield. Most planes will have a 3 or 4. So 2-up. So it successfully avoids taking any damage from that AA fire. And the other one rolls 2-up and successfully avoids damage there. But let's say this guy got really unlucky and he rolled a couple of 2s. Okay, I mean a couple of 1s. He rolled a couple of 1s. So now the German player is going to come back and say, all right, well, now that you've failed your save, I need to make a firepower test. 5+. So 2 hits means 2 dice. And I got a 5+. That shoots down that plane. So that's good. The German player's AA did what it was supposed to do, and it reduced the flight. Now, something to consider though, when dropping bombs for airplanes, there is no penalty for having 2 or less teams. So in effect, the bombardment that happened would happen the same exact way with one team or both planes there. Because either one is going to be able to, as long as you have one, you can do the bombardment with no penalties. Okay. So, something to keep in mind. Now, if the IL-2 Sturmovix were using their guns, well, if you shoot him down before that one fires, or they fire, then you've just cut their gun firepower in half. Now we're only rolling 2 dice instead of 4 dice. All right, the other thing to consider then is also that. So my Sturmovix is going to shoot guns. Well, I don't want to attack the Hetzers from the front because my guns have to go against front armor of 7, and my guns are only 6, anti-tank 6. So I definitely want to attack them from the rear. So I make sure they're within 6 inches of their target, and each Sturmovik gets a rate of fire of 2, so that's 4 shots total, just like any other unit firing. These guys are hit on 4s, so we got 2 hits, 1 for each. The side armor of a Hetzer is 2 because I'm attacking from behind. So the German player is going to roll 2 plus 4 is 6. That equals 2 plus 4 is 2, or 2 plus 2 is 4. That fails. So back to the Sturmovix, they have a 5 up firepower. I guess the bombs had a 4 up. 5 up firepower to destroy. So this guy that we penetrated, we did not get our 5 up firepower, but since he's penetrated, that means he is bailed out. And then this guy, we can only bail him out because he equaled our roll. And we got a 5, so he's bailed out. So after that attack, the Sturmoviks fly away, go back to base to rearm and refuel, and these guys are both bailed out. So you're going to have to look and consider carefully the odds of using bombs versus using cannons or guns and direct fire, and depends on your target. For example, if I was going after tigers, the Sturmovik's guns can't hurt a tiger from front or side, so you have to use bombs. Sometimes, depending on the target you're going after, bombs are going to be better, or guns are going to be better, and it's entirely up to you. So another thing to consider though too is if I've got 2 planes, I'm firing guns, that's 4 dice in direct fire. If I lose 1, it's only 2 dice in direct fire, so I'm penalized. But my bombardment, my bomb would be the same whether it was, whether it was 1 plane or 2 planes. So just something to keep in mind. All right, tactical considerations for your airplanes. Like I said, they are hit or miss. Some people like them, some people loathe them. In tournaments, I'm not too sure how viable they are to have in your list, but I do think they serve a purpose. For example, Sturmovix in a German or against Germans means that tigers and panthers aren't safe from everything in your army. They can't put that armor out front, and it's hard for you to do it. The bombs can destroy a tiger or a panther from the top it's still a long shot, but it is anti-tank 5 versus a tiger's top armor of 2. So if they roll a 1 or 2, they fail. 3 will equal, and 4 or more will bounce. So there is a 33% chance, if you manage to hit it, that he's going to fail his armor save, which is pretty good. You still have a 4 plus firepower to make, but that's pretty good. And as an aside, it's one of the reasons to take the command card, Make Your Own Luck. Make Your Own Luck means you get to change or treat any die roll as a 4. And I've used that in several battle reports where I save that card for when I'm going after a high value target, or I don't want to risk taking that 4-up firepower or that 5-up firepower. Well, I can't do it at 5-up firepower. The 4-up firepower for the bombs. So if I bomb a tiger and the tiger player fails their armor roll, I use Make Your Own Luck. I get a 4, which destroys it because my firepower is 4+, without having to make that firepower roll. Because nothing is worse than bombing a target, actually getting the hit, actually having them fail, and then you just bail them out. So that's just a pro tip for you Soviet players out there. Obviously, no other nation has that, so you can't really count on that for other nations. But you can save your lucky roll or whatever equivalent lucky is, basically a reroll for that as well, which is pretty good. All right, guys. So whether you include planes in your list or not it's a tough call. But one thing too, planes are just cool. I like how planes look. I think that they're thematic. I like the models, and it's just cool to have them in the force. You can take planes in lieu of taking other artillery, and that means that you still have a potential of a template on the table, so your opponent's going to have to consider spreading out or leaving a juicy target all clumped together for your bombs. Another thing to consider is if airplanes are a possibility, your opponent has to start considering taking AA. So even though you spend points on airplanes, your opponent's probably going to have to spend some points on AA to try to counter that. And if your opponent is committing to anti-aircraft vehicles or guns on the table, that means he's taking less shooty things like tanks and stuff like that. So it can balance out. In an ideal world, you've got air, and then you've got something to deal with air, just because you can't really count on your opponent not having it. Unless you're an American player where you might have just a plethora of 50 cal AA machine guns, which, although not the best anti-aircraft weapon in the game by far, the fact is that Americans just pretty much have a tendency to bolt a 50 cal onto practically anything, and most of those have self-defense AA. So if they're a target of an attack, they can shoot at the airplanes too, and get some last-minute defensive fire. So there you go, guys. Really the key is when you get your airplanes on, look at where you can do the most damage. One of the things I like to consider, since typically here at the channel we don't play super competitively, a lot of times we don't even figure out final points. But at tournaments, points are very important, and even losing 1 or 2 platoons can be the difference between top ranking in a tournament and not being top ranked. So you always want to look at that. And planes are a great way to pick off something. If he has 2 self-propelled artillery guns in the backfield, maybe my planes go after there and nip one of those guys out, and then he's taking morale tests to see if that runs away the rest of the game. Or if I need to punk out that HQ tank that's out on its own but it's hiding from everything else, the Sturmovix or any airplane might be able to get rid of that tank, get a lucky hit, and cause your opponent all kinds of trouble. So that said, my Sturmovix, I've been playing a lot of Russians lately, so I'm using Sturmovix as the example, have been more successful than not in the games that I've played in the Patreon and on YouTube. And even though in a particular game I might have horrendous luck, really it only takes one good attack run for a plane to earn its points back. For example, these 2 Sturmovix cost 7 points in mid-war. But let's say they take out a couple of Panzer IVs or a Tiger. They've more than made up their points. And if that's the one attack run you get with your planes, and all your other die rolls for planes coming in fail, you're still ahead of the game. You're still doing good. So even though it might feel like, and I've been guilty of this as well, like, oh, my planes just aren't coming in. They came in just once this whole game, and now I'm on turn 8, and they still haven't seen my planes, and it would really be helpful. But that one time they did come in, they blew up that Panther and earned their points back and more. So, and they've kept the German player separated so that he can't, because he doesn't know if the planes are coming in on my turn or not. He can't, parking lot his tanks next to each other with impunity with knowing those airplanes might come in. So it's just some things to consider with airplanes. As far as airplanes go, that's about it though. Please do let me know down below in the comments what you guys think about airplanes. What do you think the most effective airplane is in the game currently? I'm currently leaning towards Sturmovix, but I really haven't played with Stukas yet. And some of the American planes that can take an upgraded bomb, that they might look pretty good as well too, the P-47. But I'm really liking what the Sturmovix add to the Soviets. Let me know what you guys think down below. What would you recommend as the best plane unit in the game, late war or mid war? Also, let me know, you tournament players, the current meta. Are we seeing lots of planes? Are we not? What's going on there? I'm always curious to have that conversation. If there's anything I missed or any tactics, do sound off in the comments below as well. We always like to have engaging questions like that, and it's always good to hear from everybody. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please do consider giving us a like and subscribe. Click that bell to receive notification when we release new content. If you like our Flames of War content, please do check out our Patreon. Patrons can get access to a battle report exclusive to them every month. And you can see several battles with Sturmovix bombing Germans on the Eastern Front. And it's all very good and exciting stuff. As always, thanks for watching, and keep on wargaming.